Welcome to OG55 Live. In this stream, we are going to talk about Reedy Creek maintenance issues. Maybe there's some evidence of that. And at the end of this stream, we are going to do a Q&A. We're going to be taking your questions live. Up next on Orange Grove 55. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of OG55. But today we are going live. We're going to be talking about the Reedy Creek situation in regards to maintenance. And on the end of this stream, we're going to be taking your questions live, whether you send a super chat or just, post it in the comments. We'll be taking your questions. But before we dive into all the topics today, I want to introduce my fantastic guest, producer Dre, or as people call him, the Dr. Dre.
Man, that was pretty crazy, right? I have to thank both Theme Park Casual and Jay from Story Geeks right there for giving me the moniker. And I feel very, very humbled. Well, guess what, folks? The doctor's operating. Here we go. If you want to interact with me, you can go ahead and do so at Vashka. It's right down there, just like it's spelled. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now, on Orange Grove 55. At Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. So that is where you can find me. So since we're going to be talking about Florida, let's see here. There we go, right there. Okay. So if any of you've been watching the channel closely, you probably saw my sound setup and how I had it set up and all of that. That was that was what I had before. And now between that time, I have something almost like completely different. So if you hear anything that might not be very, very polished, or if you hear, what I'm saying right now sounds a little bit different, that'd be why. Hopefully it sounds better than before. We'll see. Give it a go. Hopefully this all works out. But thank you for your patience.
Perfect. And right out the gate, today is a pretty emotional day for a lot of people politically. Completely understand that. We're not gonna be diving into that today, though, on this channel. We're gonna stay away from that topic. It's a little too hot button and doesn't really pertain to like what we do here on OG55. I just want to put that out there. Like, so if you send a super chat asking our opinions about that, we're gonna have to respectfully decline. We appreciate the support, but that's just something a little too intense, and it's still fresh, and there's a lot of emotions running with that. So just to let you know, right off the gate, we won't be acknowledging that. We're gonna be focusing on Disney parks and all that good stuff. So just want to let you know. Yeah,
absolutely. And as Theme Park Casual astutely points out here, yes, behind the scenes part 2 is incoming. And I know some people left some comments, some questions and stuff like that. I'll answer those in there. But yeah, it's all coming. And like OG said, you know what? I like to think of the show as kind of, it's kind of escapist. It's almost like walking into the Berman Disneyland. Sometimes the outside world, you can't avoid it. Sometimes it comes in, but we really do like to provide a place where, people kind of hang out, take off their worries and whatever, and kind of get immersed in something a little bit different. So, hopefully that comes off in this show. And OG, are we ready here? Are we ready to get into our first topic?
Let's rock and roll. So there is some Reedy Creek news. Supposedly, according to, what is it, the union over at Reedy Creek? The fire department over there, the Reedy Creek Fire Department, is having some problems in terms of like their trucks and various things like that. I guess, their vehicles are in pretty bad shape, and they put the word out there publicly that, hey, you know what? We try to, we get a call, and like halfway to the call, the truck is breaking down, so it's a public safety issue, kind of, right? I mean, that's a big freaking deal.
Oh, yeah. And right? Breaking down so much that they're having to use SUVs and other kind of kind of personal vehicles that are, or kind of typical consumer vehicles that you would get at like the lot down there that aren't necessarily equipped or qualified to make such calls and carry such equipment and all that kind of stuff. So it's not the best look. And I believe it was the union head Shirey actually came out with some of this information. Now again, this comes off of the Reedy Creek Improvement District fire department, suggesting that they were understaffed and undermanned, and maybe necessarily didn't have the equipment to actually provide kind of a safe place when it came to Walt Disney World. It's some fascinating stuff, but we got some video here that might go into in depth in this one. So you want to play it?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, cool. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's see right there and right there.
The Reedy Creek Professional Firefighters Union says so many of their trucks and rescue units are out of commission right now that they are responding to medical emergencies in SUVs.
West 2's Megan Mulatto spoke to the head of the union, who says these problems are affecting their response times and capabilities.
On any given day, multiple trucks breaking down. We can't keep them in service.
President of the Reedy Creek Professional Firefighters Union, John Shirey, says fire crews are responding to calls in SUVs and pickup trucks, which don't have the ability to transport patients to hospitals.
On a normal day, we would have 4 fire engines and 8 ambulances running all of the calls that serve the entire Disney property. Right now, we have only 2 of our fire engines actually in service, 1 tower truck, and then we have another crew that's running out of our heavy rescue, which does not have firefighting equipment on there.
Shirey sent us these photos of gear piled into the trunk of a Ford Escape and uniforms on the floor next to the doors. He also sent us videos of the units breaking down. This video, he says, was from just a few days ago. You can see the gauge shifting into drive, but when the driver steps on the gas, the vehicle doesn't move. Shirey says it had to be towed from an emergency room ambulance bay.
We've had multiple situations because of how poorly maintained our fleet of vehicles is, where an ambulance will break down en route to critical calls. We had a cardiac arrest call where the responding rescue actually broke down, and then we had to send a separate rescue to go in and fill in for them. We actually had one incident where one of our own firefighters was injured on the job and had to be transported, and the vehicle broke down en route to the hospital with him in it. So it's a major safety concern for us.
He says he brought his concerns to the Reedy Creek administration, but they haven't responded. We also reached out to the board and asked their communications director for a statement, but were declined. Megan Mulatto, West 2 News.
West 2 also emailed every board member, giving them an opportunity to comment, but no members responded. We also submitted a public records request for information on the units. That information has yet to be received.
No surprise there.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Dre, and it's pretty upsetting actually. Where are you at with this? What's going on over there? What do you think the reasoning is behind all this?
Well, I mean, it's a complicated situation, right? As all this stuff, is. Look, it could be as innocuous as like, hey, we're having supply chain issues. We can't get necessary parts and maintenance equipment that we would need to maintain this fleet properly, right? And from what I have heard, that's actually what's going on with attractions inside the parks. That, right. For example, Radiator Springs Racers, right? Over there in California has had some very interesting issues as of late. Very kind of troubling issues that have kept, that attraction down for extended periods of time. Maybe not all cars on the track and so forth. And one of the reasons is because they're backlogged like 6 months on parts, that necessary parts they need to maintain those actual vehicles that run the course. This could be something like that. But honestly, when I look at it kind of critically, to me, it screams, the classic Disney management, why put good money after bad, right? If you understand that the Reedy Creek Improvement District might be in jeopardy, and it might not even be a thing past 2023, assuming these negotiations maybe fall short with the governor's office or, Tallahassee in general, do you necessarily spend the money to upkeep your infrastructure? I think that's a good question.
Yeah.
We see that happening with Splash Mountain, right? They're not paying a dime on that attraction, and when we went, Splash Mountain was continuously breaking down and so forth because they're clearly just not maintaining it. I mean, why? When they're about to overhaul it in this, huge reimagining that they have planned for Princess and the Frog. I see maybe that mindset taking place here with the Reedy Creek Improvement District Fire Department. Interesting.
Before I give my opinion, I just want to give, we got a super chat from Mr. Theme Park Casual, friend of the channel. Thank you so much, Casual. Thank you so much, brother. He says, way to keep it positive. Yeah, we're trying to keep it positive. We're trying to just talk Disney today. We don't want to get into look, there's a lot of crap going on in the world right now. And, politically, and let's just kind of get our mind off that stuff and just talk some Disney, right?
That's kind of where I'm at. Unfortunately, something like the Reedy Creek Improvement District, however, it gets a little bit in there, but honestly, it's more about, hey, how does this concern Disney? How does this affect Disney? And and that's why you got to talk about it at least a little bit, but keep it on that notion.
Here's my take on it. I think that when you hit the nail on the head, I think in the beginning when you were saying supply chain issues, I have a feeling that that's kind of like the bulk of what's going on here. There's an article from a few months ago. Let me see here. It is from NBC 15. And it says here, auto body shops hit with supply chain issues. This is just from a few months ago, April 7th. And it says here, quote, they don't have enough people working in the manufacturing plants to either manufacture the part or to prepare for shipment. And this is happening across the country with these auto body shops, right? I think this is a huge factor in what's going on with these trucks. I think this is probably the main reason. The only reason why I agree with you, Dre, with the whole thing about Disney likes to kind of neglect things if they know they're on the way out. In this case, though, the timeline I think is a little short for that, though, because Splash Mountain has been in the works for 2 years. So you're after 2 years, you're going to see the wear and tear. I don't know. The Reedy Creek thing is kind of fresh. It's only since March. I don't know if these vehicles would start to take such a downhill turn after just a few months of maintenance issues. Your vehicle can go for a while before you really start to see that wear and tear. So I don't know if it's completely triggered by that Reedy Creek decision. I just don't think there's been enough time since that has happened. I don't know, though. I could be wrong. Hey, look, I'm terrible with cars. I can't even change a tire. So what do I know? I'm terrible with cars, but I just feel like it hasn't been long enough, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting idea, right? I guess I don't know how much wear and tear actually happens on a daily occurrence to a service vehicle rather than a consumer car that we would drive back and forth to work every day. I'm not quite sure about that, and that's a good point, right? It hasn't been enough time for these things to kind of take effect, and maybe work orders or maintenance orders get rejected because it's we're not spending money. It's an interesting idea. It's an interesting prospect. I will say, I mean, Shirey says it's hey, I've attempted to get in contact with Reedy Creek board members. I've attempted to take this up the kind of chain of command, and he's gotten nowhere, which is why he feels compelled to go to the media. It's not the first time he's done this. Like we said before, the video played. There has been Shirey's kind of reached out to the media and suggested that they're understaffed, that they don't necessarily have the necessary equipment that they need, that I believe, what was it? Wasn't there that Cinderella castle fire or so, right? Do you remember this a couple months ago?
I do.
And it was
triggered by the fireworks, I believe.
Something like that, or maybe the kitchen. I have to look at that story again. But it got notable coverage because the Reedy Creek Fire Department, Reedy Creek EMS, and also some surrounding counties EMS made their way down Main Street in order to get to that that incident, right? They didn't go the back way. They actually had utility vehicles go down Main Street and ruin the magic per se, right? To get to those, to get to that incident where, you know, whatever that fire may have been caused or where it was or whatever. And it was interesting because, like I said, they were surrounding county vehicles and stuff, which Shirey has said we've had to call in help from outside the Reedy Creek in order to maintain or properly provide EMS services to, or emergency services, whatever, to various areas of the Reedy Creek Improvement District. Which is like, well, wait a minute, I thought you were supposed to be autonomous. I thought you were supposed to be self-sustaining. Why are you calling in for resources constantly? So there's definitely some stuff going on here. Now, look, it might just all be kind of what everybody's going through, right? Staffing issues are not just, you know, I mean, they're not just isolating to the Reedy Creek Improvement District. They're going on all over the place. It's tough out there right now. So is it, you know, a problem unique to them? Absolutely not. Like you said, maintenance issues or, you know, parts and so forth, that's not limited to the Reedy Creek either. That's going on in multiple industries all across the country. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird. And it's kind of scary for guests, you know, when they hear about this kind of stuff.
No, it's very scary. It's very, very scary. And it's hard to like kind of quantify like what you said, like what is actually being caused by supply chain and labor shortages, and what is just a company being cheap that's using the supply chain and shortages as cover. This has been an issue that I've noticed a lot, not just with Disney, but like when you call a customer service line, let's say if you're calling T-Mobile or you're calling, I don't know, your bank or whoever, right? We hear a lot of these pre-recorded things due to, you know, COVID-19. We're short-staffed and yada, yada, yada.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's been 2 years. You're still short-staffed? Or are you just being cheap and you don't want to hire more people, right? And that's a hard thing to quantify. Like, how do you determine the truth there? And that might be kind of what's happening here. It's really hard to tell if this is legitimate shortages because they're just short, or if they're just like, hey, you know what? Yeah, save a dime. You guys can do without, you can do with less, basically, you know?
I guess. I mean, oh man, if that's the case, you're playing with, exactly, you're playing with fire, you know? And, you know, listen, when I hear about these maintenance issues, whether it be Reedy Creek or whether it be the attractions themselves, I get really kind of worried, you know, because, I mean, I've seen other theme park and amusement park proprietors get into real trouble when they defer maintenance, when they don't, you know, when they send people through attractions. I mean, you have to understand, if you're putting somebody on a ride vehicle, essentially that, I mean, yes, whatever you actually do in that ride vehicle, it's kind of your responsibility. But as far as how that ride vehicle performs while you're in it, that's on Disney. I mean, you know, people's lives are in people's hands here. And it's a serious deal. I mean, let's not forget, we're only 20 years removed from the incident with Big Thunder Mountain Railroad here at Disneyland, and obviously the Columbia. These things can have really severe consequences, and I hope Disney's really examining that and not forgetting that institutional memory either.
Yeah, and for those of you maybe too young to remember the circumstances that Dre was talking about, in the early 2000s, a piece of the Columbia fell and hit a guest and ended up killing that person. And not too long before or after, I don't remember which one came first, Big Thunder had a major accident where the connectors to the trains came off and it crashed and people died. I mean, and these were linked to maintenance issues. And I gotta say, I'm old enough to remember those instances. And to this day, when I ride Big Thunder, it's still in the back of my head. That situation, 20 something years later, that's scary, you know. And like you said, Dre, you have people's lives, like you're responsible for these people, right? And 100%. That's someone's mom, dad, brother, sister, child. Like, you know, they're trusting you, Disney. You know, they're trusting you. And that's not something you want to play Russian roulette with, you know. And I'm hoping, and I'm going to give Disney the benefit of the doubt, I don't think they're skimping out. I do think it's these external kind of kind of things happening. I hope that's what it is. I hope that's what it is, because something like this, the fire department, ambulance services, things like that, you can't mess with that. You cannot mess with that. Chapek, if you're going to cut from anything, don't cut from that. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It is crazy, and it's a serious deal. Let's not cut from these things that I mean, people's lives could really depend upon. Let's they're yes. Do I agree? There's some fat to be trimmed in pretty much every level of Disney. Probably so, right? I mean, it's just there's a little bit that could be done when it comes to yield management and all of that. And Chapek has definitely looked into that. I could definitely tell you that much. But with the attractions and with maybe EMS for Reedy Creek, not a good look. And also too, this is an interesting point. And I just kind of was thinking about this a little bit and just kind of contemplating about this in my own private time. I was like, if you're negotiating right now with the governor's office, right, or with Tallahassee about what the status of Reedy Creek is going to be past, what is it, June of 2023, right?
Right.
This doesn't look good.
Right.
This doesn't look good at all. If you have, if you're having problems maintaining what you're supposed to be maintaining already, then why should Tallahassee or the governor's office, look to maintain the RCID, to maintain special privileges that you might have, to retain your EMS services? Well, you can't do it right now. What makes us believe that you're going to be able to do that in the future? It really is a complicating factor here, or it could at least potentially become one.
It could potentially become one. I mean, from what I heard, and I'm not by any means an expert on Reedy Creek, but from what I've heard from people that live in that area and frequent the resort, I hear Disney does a pretty good job though maintaining like at least the roads, the highways, the signage. Very good job. And I remember a lot of people worried about like that whole situation when the whole Reedy Creek dissolvement thing was sort of going on. That was a big concern for a lot of people, was like, well, is the county or state, are they gonna maintain it like Disney does, right? And that's why I was kind of surprised about these trucks, because I've always heard like they do a really good job like keeping everything paved and there's no potholes. And then I hear this truck thing and I'm like, wow, that's weird, So I don't know, but you're right. It doesn't look good when you're trying to negotiate. I want to ask you, Dre, this is on my mind because it's been pretty quiet on the Reedy Creek front. Do you think Chapek right now, like, or not maybe him personally, but his team is in like pretty active talks behind the scenes with DeSantis right now, or you think it's chilled where they're kind of at a stalemate still?
It's interesting you bring that up. I was, obviously that's a big consideration, right? From what I have heard, they are in talks with Tallahassee and the governor's office about what the new terms and conditions will be with the Reedy Creek Improvement District going forward. Some people are, I think Disney's position is, what can we lose, right? What are we comfortable with losing that will be sufficient for the governor to save face, right? Save face, but not actually disrupt major operations of the Reedy Creek Improvement District itself. That's kind of where that is going right here. It's interesting, though. I mean, and again, unfortunately, you got to delve into the politics a little bit. I let's just say, got a good source on this. DeSantis might not be there for his entire term. If he gets obviously reelected at the in November, which it looks like he very well will be. Assuming that happens, obviously we talked about like Nona and how DeSantis, if he does get reelected here in November, he would be good until about 2026 as Florida's governor. Well, and some people said he's had presidential aspirations. I'll put it this way. Those presidential aspirations might be kicking off in some way, maybe not in the way that people think it is, but in some way over there in 2024. And that maybe provides an opportunity for Disney to maybe reevaluate Florida and Floridian politics with the governor gone, with him stepping away in another capacity. And what happens then? It's a very interesting development. Yes. Yeah, it's a big scoop. Yeah. And to put a little meat on these bones here, maybe he's not looking to become president. Maybe he's signing onto a ticket for somebody else. And I think we can all kind of think who that might be. 45. But we'll see. We'll see how this all goes. But I got to confirm that that's in the works right now.
That's fascinating, because that would definitely explain the Lake Nona delay. Like, if Disney, look, if Disney's hearing stuff, right? Okay, well, DeSantis wants to be the running mate for, the Republican candidate in 2024. That kind of tracks with Disney's moves lately with this Lake Nona thing, like pushing out the move until 2026. It gives them a little bit of time to sort of to see what the landscape is at that time, right? Right now, DeSantis isn't really friendly to Disney. So maybe it is in Disney's best interest to sort of like, all right, let's just wait it out. This guy might not be in here too much longer. Let's see how that pans out. Let's start moving people in 2026. So that's a big deal. That's a game changer if that happens, both for the country, but for Disney too, because if it all really kind of depends on who replaces him too. Like, we don't know. I mean, there might be someone who replaces him who is like a carbon copy of DeSantis, and Disney gets nowhere. Or it could be someone who's a lot more sympathetic towards Disney, maybe a Republican, but a little more like, sympathetic towards what Disney wants, and allows them to sort of, reinstate that Reedy Creek situation. So we'll have to wait and see, but it changes the game. I mean, if he does that, that changes Disney's game completely in Florida. And that might be why they're staying quiet. And that might be why that they're kind of laying low right now, because things can change.
Things can change quite quickly, as we found out. I'll say this. I mean, look at how things have changed on both coasts, right? I mean, Disneyland Forward, man, I can tell you right now, a month ago, that was a for sure thing. That was absolutely going to happen, and nothing was going to derail that project. And now, here we are today, June 24th, and that is completely different. And like we've gone on this show before, it's because, some kind of, FBI agent simply published a report that included Disney on it. Now, it was redacted, but everybody kind of knew who it was, and it didn't take a rocket science to figure it out. Let's just say that. But now that's a completely different thing. And now you've got city councilmen who are looking at, maybe they won't be there next election cycle. You've got, all that kind of, what should I say, that bad blood between the city and Disney, kind of restored, popping off again, re-agitating, right? And, I mean, we obviously know what's going on in Florida, so these things can change. They can change big. Just because, this situation looks like it does one way now doesn't mean that will continue on in the future.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Disneyland Forward thing changed almost overnight. I mean, that's how fast it was. I mean, we were all talking just like a month or two ago. Remember the Anaheim PD? They tweeted out, "Hey, we need more officers. We have Disneyland Forward coming, and we got this big expansion of Disneyland Resort, right?" Mm-hmm. We were all excited. This thing is all but happening. This is basically confirmation. Right. And then the Anaheim mayor scandal dropped, and the whole thing, it just completely nuked the entire thing, changed the entire landscape. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now the whole thing is on its head. And now we just did a video the other day about Disneyland Forward, how it's probably not going to happen. I mean, it's probably at least on back burner and delayed for a while because of this whole thing. And I mean, what a difference a couple weeks makes. I mean, it's wild. It's absolutely wild.
It really is, and it's shocking. It's shocking how fast these things can happen. You know, I mean, what was it? I mean, Bob Chapek made that statement at the shareholders conference, right, regarding HB, HB 1557, right? And the next day, DeSantis is like, you know what? You want to start a war here? Let's get it on. And within a week time span, I think it was, RCID was in jeopardy. I mean, that's how fast these things actually occur and happen. And so it's one of those things. Hopefully, cooler heads prevail on both coasts, right? Hopefully, people can kind of see through and kind of re-examine their positions and understand the consequences of their actions before actually moving forward. But who knows? When you get politics, egos, all that kind of stuff involved, anything can happen.
Yeah. Now we had many shows about Peter Rice, and a lot of the trades were running with that story, and a lot of people were talking about how Chapek is sort of politically neutral, right? Or at least that's how he wants to run the company, much more politically neutral, and that was one of the big reasons. At least that was the rumor. That was one of the big reasons that he let Peter Rice go, was that he was a little too much of an activist.
Right.
And and Chapes didn't want that. I mean, he's trying to go in a different direction, basically. Do you think like a DeSantis looks at something like that and goes, okay, all right, Chapek is at least trying to right the ship a little bit. Disney's a big company, obviously. It's not going to turn on a dime. But do you think like a DeSantis would look at that and go, okay, I mean, he's making efforts to sort of right the wrongs. Maybe we'll work with him a little bit here, or maybe, what do you think about that? I mean, is that something that like he would notice and maybe alter things in Florida a little bit?
It's an interesting idea. If Chapek was smart, he would pin it on Peter Rice. If he was part of this negotiation process, right? And say, hey, look, listen. What we said back in the day, we don't really believe that. This was, this was some kind of rogue executive that we had. We thought we could trust him. We put a lot of faith in him. He took the opportunity to, make statements that maybe necessarily the entire company didn't agree with, right? And that's now been purged. Could possibly do that, right? And kind of say, hey, present it in a way that says, we won't meddle in Floridian affairs any longer, right? You leave us, to our own devices, right? And we leave you guys alone. That could definitely be a thing. If Chapek is shrewd, and I believe he is, he would absolutely do that for sure.
Now, our friend Theme Park Casual had a good point here. He said pulling back Lake Nona doesn't seem like an olive branch. That's a good point, dude. That doesn't seem like an olive branch at all. That seems like, you know what? Middle finger, baby. That's what that looks like.
Hey, it does actually feel like that. Ain't no lie about that. And that's why all of these things happening within these kind of windows that we're seeing right here is really, really interesting, right? Because I gotta believe Lake Nona had a little bit something to do with the political climate, right? And enthusiasm for Disney out there in Florida. 2026, DeSantis might be gone by then. It's a weird thing. It's a weird move.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. This whole thing is fascinating. At the end of the day, and this might just be me, like I'm kind of like the eternal optimist. I think that even the bad stuff, right, kind of happens for a reason, and kind of things work out for the best, right?
Sure.
Perfect example, we got a really kind of half-assed park with DCA in 2001, right? And we had some dark years after that, but it kind of worked itself out, where we ended up really getting a solid park at the end of the day, because they had to invest to get people back in that park, and we got Cars Land, World of Color, Buena Vista Street. It really turned out to be a solid park. And we probably wouldn't have gotten a lot of those cool elements had it not been a failure in 2001. So my overall point with this is like, okay, right now the landscape really stinks. It really, as a Disney fan, the landscape really, really stinks. But I think like from the ashes, I think that it will probably end up working out for the best. And we'll just have to kind of wait and see, you know. And that might just be me being a half glass full kind of guy, but I like to think so.
Well, you know, sometimes, like you said, sometimes these things happen for a reason. You know, I mean, as cool as Westcott might have been, I like Disney California Adventure. I really do. And Cars Land definitely wouldn't have been a thing had Westcott gone forward. And some people feel that out of the big three lands that people really enjoy, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Cars Land, and Pandora, some people feel that, you know, Cars Land is like the best of the three, you know? So, like OG said, sometimes these things happen, and sometimes what we get out of the ashes, right, might be better than what we once originally thought. We're just gonna have to see, you know. These stories aren't written, even if the, you know, Tallahassee, the Florida legislator comes back and, you know, sets up laws in stone regarding the RCID. It doesn't mean that those things can't be changed, apparently. So you just never know. Yeah,
you never know. You never know. We're going to have to wait and see how it all pans out, how it all shakes out. And we got a big thing coming up, February 2023. We'll see if Chapek gets his contract renewed. I'm guessing he probably will. But I think that's going to change the trajectory of the company a little bit. I think that when you have a guy in there now that's a little more confident that his job is secure, that might affect his decision making, you know, and I think that might be a good thing. I think that Chapek got off kind of to a shaky start because he was sort of, I don't know, he came off a little weak in some ways. And I think maybe if he feels like he's got the job and he's secure in his position, maybe he'll start to be a little more confident in making these decisions more firmly, and not the whole, like, you know, Florida bill thing. Like, we're not going to get involved in politics, and then 2 weeks later, we're going to actively work to repeal it. That kind of, you know, flip-floppy bullshit. Hopefully, if he does get renewed, he's got the confidence to, like, you know, make decisions and stick with them and be an actual leader, you know. We'll see.
We'll see. I think Chapek is kind of, I mean, it's trial by fire. I mean, it's one controversy after another sometimes, and, you know, rapid succession, overlapping. It's crazy. I think he is kind of learning the ropes here. I think this is why, like, the board has kind of faith in him, because, I mean, I was even reading an article with some Wall Street analysts, actually, as part of the next show that we're going to do on a certain Disney family member that might be staging, some internal conflict within the company. That's a whole other story. But, and trust me, folks, we will get into that. But I was reading I think it was a quote from a Wall Street analyst, and they were saying, you know what, it really isn't fair what's going on with Chapek. You know, it's just, right. I mean, he has just had quite the time of it. And it's, you know, it's like you said, it's just not fair. It's just, this shouldn't be happening to him. And yet it is. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people with daggers out, and there's a lot of undermining going on. And, you know, some things are kind of natural, right, or organic, and some things aren't. And that's really put Chapek in a bad position. But I think he is keeping the company afloat surprisingly throughout this whole thing. I understand the stock price isn't as the highest it's ever been and so forth, and that's really taken a toll. But the company is still whole. You know, they haven't had to sell off, you know, major divisions or whatever. So you got to give the guy credit on that front. And I think he will be a better CEO, I believe. You know, in the maybe months or even years ahead.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree with that. Well said. All right, let's dive into some Q&A. some Q&A. We already got a couple of great questions here, and keep submitting the questions in the comments. We're going to go for a little while and answer questions and kind of just talk some Disney parks. And even if you want to talk the streaming and film stuff too, that's all good. Put it in the chat. All right. So we have Mr. Stuart Rayfield, and he says, do you think we might ever see a D23 like expo outside of the US? Star Wars has done Star Wars Celebration in Europe 3 times before and is going to be in London next year. This is an interesting question from Stuart. What do you think about this notion of like D23 Expo? It's only been in Anaheim. It hasn't even been in Orlando. It's only been in Anaheim in its entire existence. Do you think that maybe Disney will ever go outside of the US and have the expo overseas? Maybe Europe, maybe somewhere else. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm surprised, OG. I would have thought you would have known about D23 Expo Tokyo.
Oh,
it's been there,
true.
a couple of times here, and I believe it will return there again.
That's true.
But as far as expanding the concept out to other markets, I think there's a very strong possibility. I mean, let's be honest here. Disney has a presence in probably every single, many continents. It definitely Europe and Asia, right, which are some of the biggest markets. It wouldn't surprise me that they have something like a D23 Expo or even like a Destination D23 in some of these other places. It's kind of hard because D23 Expo is a celebration of all things Disney. It's not just the parks, but it's the studio, right? And the various studios underneath it, Lucasfilm, Marvel, Pixar, all that kind of stuff. So it's tough to transport those assets to other places outside of Anaheim because it's like the convenience factor. It's just right there, right? A lot of their operations in Burbank, Glendale, so forth, and they can just ship it all right there, within the same locale, within the same corner of the state. Pretty simple, right? That gets a lot more complicated when you're talking about Europe and elsewhere. In different ways that, maybe Lucasfilm can overcome to allow for a Star Wars Celebration in Europe and so forth. So, complicating factor, but I do think Tokyo, they'll do something there because it's a major market for them.
Yeah, and from what I understand, a lot of Star Wars is filmed in Europe, right? Like Pinewood Studios and stuff. So that they make a good point there, Dre, where that might be why they choose that location quite a bit because of the proximity to the actual filming over there, and transporting those sets or those whatever they need to do. That would make a lot of sense. I wouldn't mind them kind of expanding the D23 Expo to more locales besides just Anaheim. And I know they do. Yeah, you mentioned the Tokyo one. They do that as well. I wouldn't mind them doing it in Orlando one year. That would be kind of cool. I mean, even like Comic-Con, right? Comic-Con is kind of like obviously San Diego Comic-Con is the most famous. That's like the most watched one. But sure. Comic-Con has these expos throughout the country. It kind of moves around. It doesn't it's not just San Diego and that's it. It goes around the country. They have them in New York and everything. So I would love to see kind of D23 maybe do that model, right? Have the main expo in Anaheim, the big event, but then have smaller D23 expos around the country, maybe in Texas, New York, Florida, wherever, and just kind of travel the country with these things. I think that would be an interesting thing. And I think it'd be also an opportunity for D23 members, because if you look, that was one of the reasons why I never really got into getting a D23 membership. Mm-hmm. I mean, there really isn't anything there. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there really isn't. And it's even worse if you live outside of California or outside of Orlando. It's even worse. So if you start to have these expos nationwide, various cities around the country and what have you, and even around the world, you open that D23 membership market up too, because now you can start to bank on that. You can give special things for those members, right?
Right.
And you have an actual event now that they can actually go to near their home. So that would be a pretty cool idea, I think. These fan expos are a lot of fun. They really are. I think it would be great if more people had access.
Oh, I do. I absolutely do agree. I mean, that's kind of the question, right? It's like, what's the biggest bang for your buck? If you're going to do something in another market or so forth, and you're going to put on this whole event, I mean, can you necessarily rely upon other markets to show up and support it? Like, you can in Florida or California. I will say that's why I think the destination D23 model, like you said, is a good model to go. Expand that out. Don't just keep it in Orlando. Move it out to all these different places, and then people have a different expectation between that and D23 Expo. They know D23 Expo, you got to come all from all over the world to hit that one. But destination D23 might be catered towards the specific market that it's in. Maybe having to do with local assets and so forth. Let's say, for example, right, that you had one in Paris, and it was geared towards mainly Disneyland Paris, but you can incorporate stuff like, hey, Pinewood's not necessarily that far away in comparison, right? You can kind of do some tie-in stuff there. And I think there's stuff you can do. I will say, on the D23 membership front, you're absolutely right. Like California, I mean, if you're not in the state, you basically get no perks for being a D23 member, and that was one of the really unfortunate shortcomings of that program. But to your point, I think if they were to do the Destination D23 model, that might give a little bit of a perk for becoming a D23 member outside of just California. I know for D23 members in Arizona, I think we've only had like one event, so it's kind of an issue there. Oh, hey, look at that. We've got some people in the chat now, Matthew Murr, which we are going to have a show, right, with Matthew tomorrow. That should be really, really fun there.
Yeah, we're going to have Mr. Matthew Murr on the show tomorrow, talk a little bit about Abigail Disney.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Man. That's a hot topic right there. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And our friend Drunk 3PO, he sent a super chat of $5. May the force be with you. May the force be with you too, Drunk. It's good. It's always good to see you in the chat, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Absolutely. He is one heck of a guy. Really, really good guy. Honestly, as we've gotten to know him, privately and so forth. I mean, he's a really, really good dude. So I really do appreciate you dropping by, Drunk, and obviously giving $5 to the channel. That's awesome. That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Much appreciated. And Isidoro Rendon is asking, do you think that because of Disneyland Forward is in turmoil, that's why lately we have been hearing of the Tomorrowland redo coming soon? This is an interesting kind of theory, and I've been seeing this a lot in the comments on my channel. Oh, well, maybe now this means maybe that's why we're hearing about Tomorrowland. I personally don't think that's why we were hearing about Tomorrowland. I think we were hearing about Tomorrowland because Disney thought Lightyear was going to be a huge hit. And those rumors we were hearing from WDWNT about retheming Space Mountain to Lightyear, I think that the new Tomorrowland that they were planning was like the Trojan horse to kind of get this Lightyear thing in Space Mountain. Then Lightyear completely shit the bed at the box office, and that whole thing has changed. Completely changed. So I don't think that, I don't think it's because Disneyland Forward's in turmoil. I don't think that at all. I think it's the Lightyear thing. And I don't know. I'm not even sure if the Tomorrowland thing's going to happen now because the Lightyear's box office. I think that was really the main motivation behind all those Tomorrowland rumors, in my opinion. What do you think, Vash?
Oh, God, I hope you're not right about that. I hope you're wrong, but I think you might be right about this one. I think Lightyear had something to do with it. I mean, it's interesting. Dusty Sage from Ice Chat will have his kind of weekly walk through the parks. It's kind of an interesting little series that he's kind of constructed for himself. It's really, really, really good content. He only does it on I think Facebook Live, which is kind of a weird platform. You would have thought YouTube, but say love you. That's the modality he's going there. But I will say, during one of his walkthroughs, he was talking about that and how apparently from his sources, he was saying that Tomorrowland's redo was going to be a thing as you know, a byproduct of that, or first hinted at through that concept art that we first saw placed in the entrance of Tomorrowland back in 2019. Or maybe it was even early 2020 that concept art was placed in front of the entrance portal into Tomorrowland. Anyway, that was supposed to be phase 1 of the incoming Tomorrowland redo. And I guess, you know, like we had speculated before, Joe Rohde was working on it and all that, and it was all going to go forward. And then the, you know, events of 2020 happened, and that kind of upended everything. Right. And from what Dusty's saying is, it was between Tomorrowland or Toontown, and they opted for Toontown first because it was the, quote, cheaper option. It's very interesting wording right there. Now, I had said before on the show that Dusty was firm on, hey, Tomorrowland was actually coming. But in this most recent live stream that he had, he kind of backed off a little bit from that kind of more bullish notion that he was kind of probably getting out there. So that leads me to believe that maybe Tomorrowland might not be coming after all, which I know some people might be disappointed in that, but you have to understand, folks, I think Braden from Mickey Views also had a good video on some of this as well, with his recent Splash Mountain video. The company is in dire straits here. They're not looking too good. I mean, obviously we know about the stock price problems, right? But also too, I mean, they're still looking at millions, billions and billions of dollars worth of debt that they unfortunately acquired with the 20th Century Fox deal. They're still paying on that, and as you know, interest rates just went up. So as far as capital expenditures, in any of these divisions, and remember, Tomorrowland is part of a division that's part of a division, right? So it has its corporate, consumer products, products experiences. What is it? What is it again? it's
parks and experiences, and I don't know.
Parks, experiences, and products,
something like that. It's this convoluted mess now,
right? It's consumer products merged with Disney Parks and Resorts, right, to create kind of one entity, and it's kind of a subdivision of that Tomorrowland, and it's like there's so many other places that we could be spending money right now. Does Tomorrowland make sense? And we've already said it on this show before, right?
Right.
How it's like, if you do Tomorrowland, you really got to do it right. You cannot make the same mistakes that you made back in 1998 and set the whole thing backwards. You really have to spend the money, and I just don't think Disney's they're in an enthusiastic position to do that, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's why I really do think that they were banking on Lightyear, and it didn't. They were betting on the wrong horse. Man, I think with that box office, I don't know. Have you?
I mean, I'm hearing that it might lose as much as $100 million.
Yeah. No, it's bad. I mean, the Minions are coming in at the end of the month, and it really have to make a ton of money before Minions comes in. Because once Minions comes in, that's major competition. So it's going to lose a ton of money at the box office, and it's good for park fans in the sense that I think if that rumor was true that they wanted to retheme Space Mountain to Lightyear, the box office completely killed those chances, because that's not going to happen. I don't think now. So yeah,
tough to say. Yeah. Look, the silver lining in that is that maybe Tomorrowland gets reevaluated when the financial situation for the entire company is in a different place, going in a different direction, all of that, and they can kind of spend the money necessary, because it's going to be some money. Right. Toontown was unbelievably expensive when it was built, but if they felt that Toontown was the cheaper of the two, it's going to be a lot of money, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of improvements that need to be made. And seeing the Submarine Lagoon rehab like it is, we might be in here for the long haul, but we'll see.
We'll see. Disney lately has been throwing a lot of curveballs, so I can't even predict what they do anymore.
Can't predict it.
Who knows?
Can't predict it. My game is completely off. I'm still trying to rely on myself to hopefully one day predict what they're going to do tomorrow, but who knows?
So our good friend Mr. Matthew Murr is asking, what do you think of the whole idea of what would Walt do that Disney went through in the 70s and 80s? I think it's quite stagnant. You know what, Matthew? I agree with you. I mean, here's the thing that's kind of tricky about what would Walt do. Mm-hmm. You don't want to completely abandon like the fundamentals and the foundation that Walt built, right? Like you want to still respect what the man built and the foundation at which he built it on. But at the same time, you don't want to get married to like every little thing that he said. And like, you know, like times change, things evolve. Like a perfect example of that. I know my Disney parks people are going to hate me for this, but I'm going to say it anyway.
I know where you're going. I know where you're going. And you know what? We got to do it. We got to do it right here. Got to go balls to the walls here.
Right. But, the alcohol in the parks thing is a perfect example of that, right? Like in the 1950s, Walt, it was different. It was 1955, you know, and he's comparing like these seaside parks where you had like a lot of drunkards on the piers and what have you, and they were filthy, you know, and all that. He didn't want like that to be what Disneyland was ultimately going to be, right? So he didn't want alcohol in the parks because that was sort of a thing in that day. Okay, it's not 1955 anymore. It's 2022. Disney has been serving alcohol in its parks now for decades. They do it responsibly. And I think it's okay. I think that society changed. And now it's like socially acceptable to have that in these parks. And it's worked out. It has been okay. So that's a perfect example of like not completely hanging your hat on what Walt said and treating it like you know, like it's the gospel. Right. You got to evolve a little bit. And I think that you just want to be in a mindset. I think when you're running Disney, like, okay, we got to respect the history, but not get married to it where it's going to hold us back. And look, it's not an easy thing to do. It really is not an easy thing to do. There is that fine line. You really have to thread that needle. It can be done though. But what do you think, Dre, in terms of like, what would Walt do? What do you think about that mindset?
Oh man, you know, it's we're so far removed from it. You know, I mean, and look, it kind of started with Michael Eisner. As soon as Michael Eisner stepped into the role, he basically told everybody, you know, who was there, who was actually running the company at the time. It's like, you're letting a dead guy run your company, because at that time they were really like, what would Walt do with pretty much every single decision that they would make? Right. And that was all the way up until Michael Eisner actually walked in the door. So it's like when he says you're letting a dead guy run your company, essentially, he's kind of right. And it was kind of a shocking thing. And that's why, really, if you want to look at stagnation, I mean, let's be honest here. You know, Walt had a bunch of lieutenants, but he didn't have many generals because he was the general. He was the one leading. And when he was gone, that was a force, that driving force that these people needed. I mean, Walt could look at something and go, you know, I want this idea made, build that. And they would do it, but not necessarily come up with the idea in order to execute it. You know, that just wasn't their strong suit. So what would Walt do? I mean, that historically hasn't always been the best recipe for success when it comes to Disney, especially as OG has alluded to, as it's kind of the times have changed, so to speak, and kind of the marketplace changes. I think if Walt were alive, I think OG, I think you said it before, I think Walt would have maybe evolved his kind of mindset and thinking as well. In order to, you know, maybe be in tune with audience expectations and how those do change over the years as well. It's an interesting thing. I don't think we should throw out, you know, all of Walt's traditions, obviously, right? There are some sacred cows, and everybody has them, right? Where it's like, hey, you know, Walt wouldn't have liked this, you know, and maybe we should stick with that and so forth. But all those things, I think, do need to be thought through a more contemporary mindset. And obviously there were reasons why Walt did things that we should definitely honor and, you know, evaluate and kind of consider. At the same time, it's a modern marketplace that's far removed from maybe the 60s, which is where, unfortunately, we left Walt. So it's one of those things. It's a difficult thing.
Yeah, I think too, it's like, it's kind of ironic that like when, like Matthew said here, when they were obsessed with what Walt would do in the 70s and into the early 80s, they were becoming like almost further. They were almost moving away. Like they were obsessed with what Walt would do, but they were becoming further away from Walt in a weird way. The films and everything felt very safe, not very Walt-like, right? It was kind of this really kind of ironic situation. And it wasn't until Michael Eisner got in there and got rid of that mindset that they got closer to Walt again. Like the movies, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, these were more Walt Disney-esque kind of movies than any of the movies they made when they were obsessed with what Walt would do. And that's the irony there, you know? It's funny that when you break away and you just kind of take what the man stood for, let's innovate, let's tell great stories, let's be, right? You end up producing a more Walt-like content than if you're like micro, like managing the situation too much, you know? So I think Eisner hit the nail on the head with how he approached it. Yeah, the wheels fell off of the Eisner administration 10 years into it. But those early years were, chef's kiss.
Oh my gosh. You know, man, Michael Eisner with Frank Wells getting out the gate. Oh, jeez. You know, we were just talking about it too, OG, on the phone. I mean, what we were talking about the 50th anniversary celebration special that's on Disney Plus right now. Michael Eisner was apparently a part of it, and I just think back and I'm like, wow, you know, when he was there, what do you like triple or quadruple the size of Walt Disney World when you really think about it? I mean, it was just fire, you know, and unfortunately, a series of events kind of led them all astray. But I mean, when he was there, in his prime, I should say, with Frank Wells by his side, nothing could hold either of them back. I mean, it was really quite magical to watch, and the company rebirthed itself in multiple ways. And you could see that manifest itself in extraordinary ways across multiple divisions, not just the parks, but also animation, especially live action and so forth. Unfortunately, like I said, they things happened where that didn't obviously continue. But man, during those years, that was a special time.
Well, and
you know, go ahead.
When I loved Eisner because he had so much faith in the Disney brand, right? Yeah. Because Michael Eisner went in there and said, no, Disney is still a gem. Disney is still this diamond, and we just have to kind of like awaken this sleeping beast, right?
Yes.
And I really like that about him. And he was like that till the very end. Like even like those last few years when they were making really bad movies like Chicken Little.
Right.
Eisner was very defensive when people would say like, oh, Pixar is doing better animation. Like that's why Eisner started doing the CGI stuff. It was like, no, my animators at Disney can do that too. Like he had faith in Disney and the people there. It wasn't like Bob Iger, who really, honestly, I support the move. When Bob Iger bought Pixar, I support that move, but it was very much like a statement saying, well, the artists we have at Disney aren't enough. We got to hire these outsiders to come in. Where Michael Eisner would never do that. Michael Eisner had real faith in that Disney brand and the people working in that studio, and I really do respect that. You know, Iger was all about, we got to bring people in to make good movies. The people here aren't good enough. We need Marvel for live action. We need Lucasfilm for live action. And Michael Eisner really, I don't know, he had faith in the brand, and I respect him for it. I really do.
Oh, he had absolute faith in the brand. I mean, he really did believe in it, you know, and I guess he there was one interview that I saw him with, I can't remember who it was with, but, you know, I guess the interviewer asked him, like, hey, what do you fear? You know, it's like, I fear screwing this whole thing up. You know, I mean, he really felt a responsibility when it came to Disney. And like you said, waking this, you know, kind of sleeping beast or giant, right? Well, that's what Don Hahn's documentary, Waking Sleeping Beauty, is about.
Right.
because it was a mindset shared not just by Michael Eisner but Jeffrey Katzenberg. It's like this: there is some real potential here, and we just have to wake it up. To waking, sleeping beauty, and and Michael Eisner and Katzenberg and Frank Wells weren't alone. Roy E. Disney was there as well. Obviously, he was the guy that kind of ushered in this kind of new era for the Disney company, and he was a big proponent of keeping animation around and saying like, hey, there's some real potential here with animation. I know maybe some of you guys don't believe in it, but trust me, if we get this working out, everything will be running smooth. And sure enough, he was absolutely right,
100%.
So and that was kind of a fundamental value for Walt for a period of time, right? He believed in animation as well up until Disneyland opened, and he kind of shifted focus there. I would say, but maybe even before that, but animation, I think Roy E. Disney understood, like, this is really the kind of the crux of this whole kind of operation, and kind of believed in his dad and his uncle's kind of vision for the company through animation, and it really led to some success. So to kind of answer your question, it's like, yeah, well, what would Walt do, right? I think Walt may have done something similar to, ironically, to what Michael Eisner did, at least with the animation department. Maybe Parks, whole different story, but with that, yeah, and that led the company to great success.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Matthew follows up with, well, first of all, are you ready to get canceled, Ray? Are you ready to get canceled? Let's get canceled together.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Here we go.
We have a Song of the South question, so this will be.
Oh boy! Here we go. Here we go.
What do you think Disney should really do with movies like Song of the South in terms of their availability? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, I'm going to take a contrarian view on this. Oh God, I hope I don't get canceled. I'm going to take a contrarian view because I think a lot of. And I'm not saying that this negativity is unjust. I'm just saying I think a lot of the perception around Song of the South and what kind of what the idea that people have in their minds of Song of the South, a lot of it stems from the fact that it's not available. You can't get it, you can't see it, and so a lot of people,
basically.
Right? So yeah, perception becomes reality in sort of a weird way, right? Yeah, exactly. Theme park casual. It becomes reality, and I think a lot of people really haven't necessarily been exposed to it in quite the way that Walt maybe necessarily envisioned. And so a lot of people believe that it's this unbelievably racist timepiece and so forth, right? Which I will concede maybe in some cases it is, and I'm not gonna discredit people's opinion about it. Obviously people have a kind of a strong mindset for it. But I will say, it has kind of earned its reputation a large part of it because, well, we were just talking about that, the Frank Wells, Michael Eisner era, right? Because they cast it out in the way they did.
Right.
And maybe that wouldn't necessarily be the case if they had kept it in and just had a tag simply saying, "Hey, this doesn't reflect the company's values." At the time it was made, company is a lot different, doesn't reflect our current values and so forth, and just kind of had a tag before it and release it in some way that wouldn't necessarily drive controversy. Disney Plus, I think, offers that medium to do that in a way that maybe executives felt that they couldn't necessarily pursue when it came to home media and so forth. So, it's I think movies like Song of the South should be put out there so that people can evaluate them on their own.
Right.
And not necessarily take, what people might be telling them about a certain film without having seen it themselves. I'll say that because, so much has kind of been wrapped up around this film, and I think a lot of it is to do, to my original point, just because it's just not available.
Yeah, And here's the thing too. There's like that old saying where like if you don't acknowledge history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I think there's like this kind of like this rush to sort of like let's just erase everything that we find problematic. That'll fix it. And I don't think it fixes it. I think that movie could be a real teachable moment, you know, where you acknowledge the issues in that movie, right? And how that era maybe was more ignorant, right? And I think that might be an effective teaching tool. And you kind of never forget, like, okay, this is what we were as a country years ago, and now we're better. I think that's important because, like I said, if you fail to remember the past and the problems of the past, then you're destined to repeat it. It's like Disney, right? We said on the show many times, like the whole thing with California Adventure, when Eisner went in there and he built the park on a shoestring budget, and then they had to go back in there and spend another $1 billion to fix it. We've always said on this show, learn from your mistakes, right? And don't do that again. Learn from that. You have that institutional memory. It sort of goes along with Song of the South, right? It's a problematic movie, but you shouldn't like cast it out and forget about it. It should be a kind of like a teachable thing. And this is a bygone era, and it's no longer here. And let's not repeat the ignorance, so to speak, right? And I think that would be fine. And like you said, put a tag in front of it. This does not represent the values of the current company. You know, you can even put it behind a parental control. So, you know, parents can decide. There's ways around that stuff. But I think just erasing it from the face of the earth, I don't know if that solves the issue.
No, I don't think it necessarily does. It creates this almost forbidden fruit situation where people want it. And it's like, you know, they want to see what everybody's talking about. I'll say this, because Disney took the stance that it did in casting out the film, it also cast its own, you know, they cast aspersions on it. And that alone, just the act of that, fueled its own perception, right? About what this film actually was. And so, and look, I'll acknowledge there are some people, you know, our buddy Showcase, who doesn't believe there's anything wrong with it at all. And, you know, that's his interpretation. And you know, he actually thinks that some of the values in the film, if you maybe look past some other things that maybe we would consider insensitive today, maybe it has a good message and so forth and stuff like that. Maybe it could be beneficial in its own right. It's an interesting idea. So I don't want to say that, you know, it's necessarily one thing or the other, but it's like, well, we really can't see it. So how can we necessarily evaluate it on those terms and take people's criticisms? I mean, for example, you know, let me actually look this up because I want to get this correct. The signature song itself, I believe that won an Academy Award at the time. Obviously, some people have issues with that, but let me see here. I just want to go ahead and get the I want to get this actor's name correct. Let me just see here. Give me 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves, fam.
And we got a comment from Theme Park Casual saying, "Don't forget to smash that like button." Thank you so much, Casual. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you for that, man.
James Baskett, right? Who played Uncle Remus in the film. He got an honorary Academy Award. He was the first African American to actually do so, to win an award at all. So it's like, you know, that was an accomplishment in itself, I thought. That, again, we don't really necessarily talk about because we've cast the film out and everything surrounding it. It was also an achievement for Disney's animation team because it was one of the first times that live action and you know, animation had been merged in Technicolor and through a feature film in that way. So it's like, you know, there's some other aspects to it that, you know, aren't necessarily recognized because people have a certain they castigate that film in its entirety, everything surrounding it, good, bad, otherwise, in a certain light. And I think a lot of that could be mitigated. And like you said, OG, it could be a teaching moment as to why you may not do this if it was available in some way with that tag on it. That's kind of my kind of view on it. I know it's a little bit contrarian. I know people necessarily, they just want to erase the past. I don't necessarily feel that's ultimately beneficial in the long run because of the points that you bring out, OG.
100%. Next question comes from Shayla Scott, and Shayla is asking, are animatronics needed to make a great attraction anymore? A small group of reviewers wanted at least a Groot on Cosmic Rewind, but from videos I've seen, I don't think the ride needs it. Shayla, this is a fascinating question. This is a really good question, Shayla. And this is like the age-old question amongst fans, right? No, I don't think an attraction is needed to make a great. I mean, I don't think an animatronic is needed to make a great attraction. I think Disney has the cool thing right now that we live in a time where Disney Imagineers have a lot of tools in their toolbox to work with. Animatronics, projection mapping, all kinds of technology. And I think that they should utilize certain tech based on the attraction they're trying to build. So you don't not every attraction is going to need an animatronic. You don't want to just put an animatronic in a ride just for the sake of putting the animatronic in the ride. I think you have to go case by case. I think there's many different ways you can approach these attractions utilizing technology. Some of them will need an animatronic. Some of them won't. Some might need a mix of both, and that's fine. But yeah, I haven't been on Cosmic Rewind, but I've heard only good things about it. Okay, I hear it's a phenomenal attraction, and it works without one. You don't need it. You just don't need it. So why shoehorn one in there if you don't need it? I don't know. I don't think it's a necessary thing. I don't think that's the bar that should be set for attractions, is that it needs an animatronic. I just don't buy that. What do you think, Dre? You think attractions need an animatronic for it to be great, or you think that it can you can utilize many different tech to kind of tell story? I don't know. What do you think?
Shayla, this is a great question. And
it is.
It's one of the reasons why you might not be able to necessarily pose the opinion on some place like this, Twitter, because people are going to have very, very interesting reactions to it. And look, listen, I'm going to have to disagree with OG here.
It's okay.
I think a great attraction is solidified as a great attraction, especially for the long haul with an audio animatronic, and the attractions that do it extremely well with that, an audio animatronic featured in the mix, are exceptions, not the rule.
Okay.
I think one of those being maybe like Soarin', for instance, right? People see that as kind of universally recognized as a great attraction, right? It doesn't have an audio animatronic in it, but you don't necessarily see a lot of examples of that. And in fact, the audio animatronic extravaganzas that we have had are looked at they're looked at very, very fondly because of the use of audio animatronics that you see there. And I'll say this, there's a lot of tools in the tool belt, and no question about that. What sets Disney apart ultimately from its competitors, not just with Universal, but with SeaWorld and otherwise, it's because of those, very technical and very expensive assets like audio animatronics. So, I mean, think of the really great attractions now. Something like, Rise of Resistance. You look at even, Pandora's Flight of Passage, right? It features an audio animatronic in the queue. I don't know. I'll say you can make a great attraction without an audio animatronic. I think it is possible, but I think really for lasting staying power and I think people are still they're still today mesmerized by a really good audio animatronic technology. I know, like Tower of Terror, now that it's Guardians of Galaxy Cosmic Rewind.
Mission Breakout
has. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, getting confused here. You're right. Thank you, OG. I do appreciate it. Mission Breakout, right? That attraction is very much improved, even from Tower of Terror and as an attraction itself, from the inclusion of Rocket. Like, I look forward to that pre-show every single time. I don't necessarily think that would be the case without him. So it's like, you know, I think an attraction can always be improved with one. I think the really great, long-lasting attractions always have one. And not to say that it is, you know, impossible, but it's very, very rare. And in the instance of Cosmic Rewind, I'll say it's on the fine line there, but I think it would have done... Man, I think it really would have solidified it as one of the best attractions that Disney's ever done, with maybe even a few animatronic characters. So that's kind of where I might disagree with OG. Look, animatronic extravaganzas, I mean, they went out with Epcot Center as a concept, unfortunately. They went big with that kind of stuff, and unfortunately, the parks, visitors didn't necessarily resonate with that. And we've seen a change in the direction of the company ever since, and now we're seeing even less and less animatronic technology, you know, be included in its parks, and it's kind of sad in a way.
Yeah, no, it's an art form. It's art. I love the animatronics. I do. I love it. And there's some iconic ones out there. Captain Rex and now DJ Rex is one of my favorites. I absolutely love that little droid. Love him. I'm glad they found a home for him in Oga's Cantina. He's absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. I love Rex, and I get happy about seeing C-3PO in the in the Star Speeder 1000 or whatever. It's great.
Cool.
It's things I take away, and they're still selling Rex toys today. So what does that tell you?
Well, I got mine right here.
Woo! There you go, man. There you go. And we were just at, I was stunned to hear it, but we were at Oga's Cantina for the first time. Yeah. For you, and I was, we got a place right by the bar, right across from, right essentially next to Rex. How'd you like that?
Oh, fantastic. He's a great... I love his personality. He's hilarious. I love how they integrate his old Star Tours lines into his like DJ shtick, It's just flawless. The way they handled him, I think, is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It's definitely one of my favorite animatronics at any Disney park. He's just fantastic.
He's great.
Yeah.
He's great.
And our next question comes from, again, Mr. Matthew Murr. And he says, do you think Chapek's survival all comes down to the next 2 quarterly earnings reports? What do you think about that? I mean, the next 2, what do you think? I think the next 2 would push him right up against his contract renewal in February, right?
Yeah. So
pretty close.
That's an interesting question. Next 2,
I think Matthew. I think it'll be a done deal before those 2 quarterly earnings reports.
Yep.
I'm hearing that there's a meeting in June and another one in September.
Yep.
I bet you we hear of a renewal pretty soon for that June one. They're probably going to want to solidify him before the expo.
Probably the expo. Yeah.
I think he's got it. And the Peter Rice firing and all that was a move of confidence on his part. That's not a guy who's worried for his job. I know that the narrative out there in the trades and everywhere is that he came from a place of weakness by firing Peter Rice. I don't think so. I think a guy who's worried about his job doesn't do that.
Yeah.
I think he knows he's in. I think he knows he's getting renewed, and that's why he felt emboldened to do a move like that. So I think he's all but guaranteed at this point,
I would definitely say so. Give me a second here. I would definitely say so. I don't think. I don't think he's necessarily going anywhere. And the reason why I say that is because I think his contract is going to get renewed, and when it does, unless something unbelievably bad happens in one of these next 2 quarters where they they're forced to buy him out of his contract renewal and whatever. If it gets renewed, it becomes much harder to, see JPEG out the door sooner than his contract expires. So I think it's one of those kind of issues. When it comes to Peter Rice and all that kind of stuff, right? I'll have to say this. Let's see if I can actually do this right here. I'm gonna play around here. Hang on.
He had failed me for the last time.
I think that's how Bob Vader JPEG thinks of
pretty much
thinks of Peter Rice.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he's getting renewed, Matthew. I can feel the energy is different coming out of that company, and yeah, I think he's getting renewed. I really do. And then Theme Park Casual saying Chapes also has the cover of the whole market country being on downslope. He absolutely does.
Yeah,
he absolutely does, and it is a cover. But I also do think it's legitimate. I do think there is a very big element there. He spent the first 2 years of his term as CEO trying to keep the ship from sinking. And he did a pretty good job at that. I mean, the company could have fared a lot worse. I know a lot of people say, the stock price, or this, or that, and the other. Really, Disney's not in that bad a shape right now financially. They could have been a far worse than what they're going through right now. They could have had whole divisions spun off. They could have been broken off into pieces and sold off to other companies. They could have been bought out. There's a million scenarios that could have happened with those lockdowns, and none of them occurred. This is nothing compared to what could have happened. And you got to give the guy credit. He was captain of the ship the whole time. So love him or hate him, he did a pretty good job with the pandy and the lockdown. So,
absolutely. It's still astounding to me that the company actually got out of that relatively unscathed. I mean, didn't necessarily have to sell off whole divisions and do some kind of financial wizardry in order to make it out of there. I mean, they were actually able to get out of there pretty much okay. It's quite stunning because I don't know, man, even if some moves were different, for example, right? Look, we talk about DeSantis right now, right? And how it's like he's not necessarily on the best terms with Disney right now, but there could have been an alternative in there, and apparently that alternative has some legal trouble of his own right now, which is very interesting. And if that guy had been in, the governor's mansion at that time, right? Maybe Walt Disney World doesn't open up as quickly as it does, and maybe that revenue stream, isn't activated as soon as it is, and at the same time, maybe that does drag the entire company down. It's a really interesting thing. If only a few different things played out differently, maybe we're looking at a different Disney company. But the reason why we're looking at the company the way we are right now, a large part has to do with JPEG.
Yeah, no, I know that's crazy to think about, and we've talked about this before. Kind of like how things sort of move. Things in a certain direction. If Walt Disney wouldn't have died in 1966 and he lived, let's say, another 15, 20 years, we wouldn't have had a Disney Renaissance era. We probably wouldn't have had a Howard Ashman and all these other events that happened in the 80s, right? So this stuff changes the course of history. It kind of blows my mind. It kind of does. But you're absolutely correct on that, Dre. You're absolutely correct. Now, Jared here is saying, since Splash Mountain will be gone due to racism, do you think the Splash Mountain segment in Remember Dreams Come True will be removed or replaced? I think so, probably. I mean, they're gonna wipe every single reference to that movie. I don't even think they play the little bird whistle when you enter the park anymore, because I think that's the Bluebird from Song of the South. Like, remember when you used to scan your ticket and they had the little chirp? That one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think they play that anymore. So you're not gonna hear Zippity Doodah, the little bird. They're definitely not gonna have the music in these fireworks shows. I think it's definitely on. It's high likelihood it gets removed. High likelihood.
It's interesting, though. I mean, somebody caught some footage of the music loop over there at Walt Disney World's entrance corridor for Magic Kingdom and found that Zippity was actually playing there, which was really, really fascinating. I was surprised by that. Maybe there was a screw up, mix up. I have no idea what actually happened there. We're also assuming that Remember Dreams Come True is actually going to play again. I'm not sure if it does. It's man, it's a complicated thing, you know. Yeah, I mean, Theme Park Casual, I think you're right about that. That was the anthem for the parks for so long. Zippity-Doo-Dah. I mean, it really, really was. You know, when the parks really had kind of nothing to go on. Even before Splash Mountain, long before Splash Mountain, you'll hear Zippity-Doo-Dah featured as part of the parks presentation when it comes to like the wonderful, the color, the opening ceremonial special for Walt Disney World actually has Zippity-Doo-Dah in there and stuff like that. And that's long before Splash Mountain even opens. So it was an impactful thing. It really was, and to see it kind of removed, I mean, it's a shock to the system, to say the least.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting, but yeah, I think they're going to try to scrub as much as they can from that. Mara Parker, Mara, what's up? Says Tomorrowland is shameful. If you saw it in the 70s like I did, you would know how sorry it is now. Yeah, I wasn't. I never saw it in the 70s. I did see it in the 80s though. It was still pretty glorious in the 80s. But it's a shell of its former self at this point. It's really sad. But they really have to go in there when they got the money. They can't half-ass this thing like they did in '98. They got to have a real solution. And a real solution, in my opinion, is you got to bulldoze just about everything except Space Mountain and kind of rebuild this land. How many times is Disney going to repaint the 1960s buildings over and over? We've had white, blue, silver, brown, green. Come on, bulldoze the buildings, give us new architecture, new design work. I would love to see a sprawling fountain with some beautiful LEDs, just some interactivity in the land, bring it to life, some kinetic energy. There's so much you can do there, and you're going to need money to do that. And I don't want any kind of like shoestring budget. I want a real solution. Spend the money, get it right.
Yeah, I agree. Oh man, it's tough. It's so difficult because it's like, you know, how much do you really apply towards Tomorrowland to really get it up and justify that capital expenditure? I mean, I've said it before on this show, and I got to be consistent with my principles here. Lands don't necessarily drive attendance, you know. Right. We saw that with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and when it originally opened without Rise of the Resistance, and even with Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, it wasn't the runaway success that I think a lot of people were hoping for, and that did change considerably when Rise of the Resistance opened, and then 2020 happened, and then, you know, that's that. I think you know, obviously we all know Tomorrowland needs a huge update. But it's like, man, I mean, look at the problems that they're having with Epcot right now, trying to get the front half of that park kind of up to snuff. Obviously, it's going in a completely different direction than just the future. But, you know, the Tomorrowland problem kind of still exists. So it's like, what direction do you necessarily go in? Do you add a big new attraction in order to justify a larger Tomorrowland redo and really get people down there? And it's a complicated issue. I will say you can't go cheap on it. No. I mean, I think we all kind of know that. So how expensive do you necessarily go here? What is it? Tokyo is spending hundreds of millions of dollars on theirs, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that correct?
Yeah,
I think it was
from what I
over
understand,
300, 400.
I believe so. And from what I understand, that's just for Space Mountain. I don't think they're redoing their whole Tomorrowland, right?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, now that you say that, I mean, I think they're altering the surrounding area, the immediate surrounding area of Space Mountain. And maybe that's part of a multi-phase project out there. I don't really know, but even that, like you said, OG, it's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars just to do that. I don't know. I mean, you know, you definitely don't spend $1 billion, but I don't think $200 million is going to do it either. Where is that kind of middle ground there? Ugh, it's tough. I mean, you're talking about the Carousel Progress building. You're talking about, hey, if you want to go in the Nemo Submarine Lagoon area and Autopia, you've got that whole issue. You got the monorail tracks that you have to contend with out there. Now you actually go in that direction. You have the old people mover tracks themselves. You know, do you contend with those, you know, above the Autopia attraction and so forth, and how it kind of crisscrosses out there? Do you necessarily affect them in the land itself? It's a whole big complicated mess. It really is. And it's going to take a lot of money. And we were at the time there when that was coming. And now this. So it's, I wish I had better answers.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jared follows up with, not to spread bad vibes, but once Julie Andrew dies, she's 86. Out of respect, they could play the show again. I'm assuming you're talking about Remember Dreams Come True, Jared. Like Captain EO and Michael Jackson, possibly. That's a possibility. They might do something like that. I don't like to talk about her passing away. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's horrible. I mean, that would be horrible. She is such from what I hear, she's a really, really amazing person and such a Disney legend too. I mean, Walt Disney loved Julie Andrews, you know?
Oh yeah.
You know, but maybe you're right, Jared. Maybe out of respect, they could bring that show back and, you know, in her honor. You never know. You never know.
I never really thought about it. I guess you could. And look, you know, I would have said before, even today, it's like, well, it's a fireworks show. That takes a little bit more money than maybe necessarily Captain EO does, right? Because, you know, you're just putting it in the Magic Eye Theater and, yeah, it's one cast member. It's not that big of an investment, right? And it's a goodwill gesture towards Michael Jackson in that way when he passed away. But I will say, did you hear the announcement tonight, OG, that starting in, I believe, July, Magic Kingdom is going to hold 2 Disney enchantments per night?
I did hear that. And our friend Showcase, and I did hear that. And our friend Showcase said, "Who wants to watch that show twice?"
Oh, let's see. There we go, right there, right?
There you go.
Man, that's tough. Yeah, that's yeah, I will agree with that. Disney Enchantment, not the best show out there, and we have to also understand that they don't have a nighttime parade, they don't have Fantasmic, they don't have some of the things that could, you know, entertain people, right? In multiple ways throughout the park. So maybe it does make sense to do 2 enchantments per night, even though, you know, might not be the most popular show out there. But look, you got to hand it to them. These things are some of the most expensive productions that Disney does per night. And the fact that they're doing 2 of them is, I think, a pretty good commitment to, show quality and guest satisfaction, right? So maybe, Remember Dreams Come True coming back. Maybe it's not that far of a possibility if they can do 2 fireworks shows per night in Magic Kingdom.
Right. And Casual follows up. He's saying if we don't get a Mary Poppins attraction built before Julie leaves us, yeah, that's 100%. Like Walt Disney, I think it was the 10-year anniversary of Disneyland. He said that now that we have Mary Poppins, she's going to be part of every single anniversary at Disneyland. He was very much all about Mary Poppins. I would love to see a Mary Poppins attraction. Well, the one that they were planning for Epcot, they should definitely greenlight that again. And even here at Disneyland, I would love to see Mary Poppins attraction. I think having her as a permanent kind of fixture in the park would be such a great, not only homage to Julie, but even to Walt, because I know he loved her to death. So I agree, Casual. I really hope that attraction at Epcot gets built. And from what I understand, I think it was on one of those quarterly earnings calls. Chapek said it was just delayed. It's just on ice right now because of the money has kind of it's dried up a little bit after the lockdowns.
Yep.
He said it's been like kind of on hold, And same thing with the Avengers e-ticket. He didn't
Right.
say that they scrapped it. So there's still hope. There's still
And
hope.
I guess Chapek was really excited about that Poppins, whatever it was going to be, walkthrough attraction at Epcot. I mean, he was like really excited about it. He was really enthusiastic about it, and it didn't sound like a huge investment.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe we do get that. In all honesty, I mean, look, I think Epcot still needs some shoring up when it comes to attractions and things for families to do and so forth. And Mary Poppins, I think, it would be a nice gesture to the fans, obviously, because I mean, Mary Poppins is a beloved franchise for them, but also to guests and people looking for something to do out there. Look, out of all the things, I mean, maybe Mary Poppins attraction is in our future. We'll see.
Yeah. I was really bummed out when Mary Poppins Returns didn't do well. And actually, I had the honor of actually seeing that at the Walt Disney Studios.
Oh, really?
In Burbank. Yeah.
Oh, lucky dog. That's awesome.
You want to talk about magic? Like, seeing a movie like that on the lot was just like, oh my God. It was like going to Disneyland for the first time or something. I was just like, oh my God. It was so incredible. I loved it. And that might be why I love the movie as much as I did, because that element of it, I can't separate myself from that.
Mm-hmm.
If I saw it on Disney Plus first, my feeling towards the movie might have been a little different. I don't know. But I walked out of that theater smiling ear to ear. Absolutely loved it. And I was really, really sad that it kind of underperformed at the box office.
Yeah.
Damn, bummer. But you know what? Mary Poppins is a classic Disney IP, and there's so much going on with that. Such a rich history. I hope she has a more permanent place in the parks. I really, really do.
Yeah, I hope so. Hey, look, Tony Baxter. I mean, one of his first projects that they even dreamt up, even before he worked at Imagineering, was a Mary Poppins attraction. And that's what he really, really wanted. So I know he's not alone in that. I know a lot of other people do. We'll see.
Yeah. So, Mr. Theme Park Wizard.
Theme Park Wizard. Wait. Hang on. Theme Park Wizard. How about that, right?
That was great, man. That was great. You know what? Shout out to Dre. He's got a new toy.
I do. Sorry.
He has been bringing it. Do the Darth Vader one. You got to do the Darth Vader one.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see. Because I like the breathing sound effect in the background as well. So get that queued up right there. Right there.
You have summoned me, OG55. What do you desire? Yeah.
Great. That's fantastic, dude. I love it. We are going to have this is like endless potential on this show.
Oh, yeah.
Endless potential. But
there's some of the stuff I can do is quite surprising to me. Like, I'm trying to figure out wow, this is untapped potential right here. I mean, it's crazy. I hope to show it off in ways and have it be tasteful too.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
I'm excited. Mm-hmm. Well, that one alert, you played the that alarm, but it was like
yes. Yeah. Let's see. Right there.
Yeah. I like that one, but it's a little strip clubby though.
Yeah, exactly, right? This is why I go with something a little bit more on brand. But hey, it came preloaded, so I was like, let's give it a shot.
No, I dig it. It's cool. It's really cool. All right, so Mr. Wizard is saying, so no World of Color Villainy. I can never pronounce this. What villainous? Is that what it is?
Yes, World of Color Villainous.
Mm-hmm. Thoughts? Good, bad? Did it get a bad reception? Wizard, I'm going to get a lot of hate for saying this, but I'm not really a big Halloween guy, to be honest with you.
What?
I'm more of a Christmas guy. So I'm not super attached to that, but look, I will concede, like the Halloween stuff is big business. I mean, Universal knows all about that. So does Knott's. This is a big industry. There is a market for it. So even though it's not my cup of tea per se, I would love to see, because you follow up with, would you want a new World of Color Halloween show? Yes. If they're not going to bring Villainous back, they should absolutely give the fans a new show. I mean, it's a no-brainer. They have to. Halloween is big. People love Halloween.
People typically do, but I'm still getting over the shock that you don't. You don't like Halloween at all. Like, it's kind of fun, right?
Not that I hate it. Not that I hate it. Sure. It's just that it's not out of all the holidays. It's not like up there for me.
That's fine.
So much more of a Christmas guy. Like I go to the parks. You go to Disneyland like during the holidays, like Christmas time, right. And the decorations, the music, the fireworks, the snow. It just hits different for me.
Oh
like
my gosh.
It's just magic on top of magic, right? The Halloween stuff is fun. It just doesn't hit me like the Christmas stuff.
I'll concede with you when it comes to the parks, when it comes to Disneyland especially. Halloween it hits, but I will agree with you. It hits differently, and I think between the two, Halloween or Christmas. I mean, obviously, I will definitely concede with you. Christmas is just a magic time, and it's like I gotta be honest. I not to give too much away, but us as a family, we don't necessarily celebrate Christmas, right? So but even then, you can just kind of feel the magic. You can feel there's a certain. There's a difference there that is irreplaceable. Myself personally, I don't know. I guess I'm such a purist. I always look forward to the kind of the summer season with the 4th of July bunting and stuff like that. I always kind of feel like it's Disneyland kind of in its Disneyland in its prime, how it's meant to be, kind of how it was originally envisioned, right? But Christmas, man, you just can't get away from that. But to answer the question about Villainous, from what I understand, it didn't get the best reception back when it played, and I think the World of Color platform has had so many technical issues. It's like, okay, we can play the show, or we could just kind of keep it offline, save some maintenance dollars, and not actually playing World of Color Villainous, and maybe work on the platform during those nights or something. It might have been a reevaluation there. Might be supply chain issue focused, whatever, technician focused. I don't know. There could be a number of issues, but I will say, Theme Park Wizard, I was surprised that it wasn't featured at this year's Oogie Boogie Bash, because I would have sworn that it was going to be. Because without it, it leaves less things for people to do on Oogie Boogie Bash, and the distribution of crowds and so forth changes. If you have something like a World of Color Villainous playing, you could even potentially increase the amount of people that you actually have at those parties, because you're giving them more things to do. So I was surprised by that.
Yeah. And me and my fiance last night, we were watching a lot of Disney parks content on Disney Plus and even on YouTube and things like that. And we came across the Marvel fireworks over at Shanghai, right? Oh my God, that thing is insane. And I'm thinking to myself, why doesn't Disneyland Resort, why have they never tapped into that? Can you imagine a Marvel show, like a World of Color Marvel, where you had Guardians, Iron Man, Captain America, you could have Scarlet Witch, just this whole thing out in the lagoon around Marvel. You know what a big, massive hit that would be? It's like money on the table, bro.
So, okay, this is an interesting discussion right here. Do you remember they used to do the World of Color encores? They used to do the little tags at the end right there. You could have it in that kind of form, or I always felt that the Pirates of the Caribbean segment, having replaced the old what was it, Hellfire / Chernobog sequence. Yeah. I always felt, Night on Bob Mountain. I always felt that it didn't quite live up to what was there before. I mean, I understand, the Chernobog figure was supposed to come up and it didn't, and maybe they kind of reevaluated after that. But if you're going to replace it with anything, maybe it is Marvel. You know, if it works in that segment of the show, I don't know if it does, but it's just like, I think you're right, OG. It's like, man, bring that stuff over here. People want to see it. People really resonate with it. I understand people have a, you know, they kind of have a weird feeling with Marvel in the parks still, kinda, and, you know, featuring it in Nighttime Spectaculars. It brings it one step closer. But I think, look, you have one of the most popular franchises in the, well, I will say the most popular franchise in the world. Yeah. Probably, right? It's especially if you're looking at box office. Bring them out. It surprised me too. Even Harmonious, right? The new show that played over there in Hong Kong didn't have any Marvel inclusion. I was really shocked by that. I was like, wow, you know, you would have thought that this audience would have been more receptive than others, but even then, it didn't have it. Very strange.
There was something kind of like, I don't know, man. Watching that Shanghai Marvel fireworks show, there was something magical about seeing all these heroes on there. Then you hearing Hulk, roar. You know, it was just it was really, really well done. And Captain America would throw his shield, and the pyro would go off.
Yeah, I love that portion. I love that.
Just incredible, and I would love to see that on the Lagoon. And I'm just shocked they haven't capitalized on that more with DCA. I mean, I can kind of see it for Disneyland, Castle Park. Maybe they want to stay away from that, but DCA, it's ready to go.
Come on, I mean, why? Oh, it's so strange why they don't capitalize on that more. By the way, speaking of Nighttime Spectaculars, you know, additional things that Disney Parks has done recently. Did you see Harmonious live?
I did. We did. That was one of the things we watched yesterday.
Okay, so what did you think? You never told me.
Okay, so I really liked it. I really, really liked it. I thought the performances were fantastic. It was interesting that they kind of focused a little more on the performances than on the actual show a little bit.
Right.
But I think it was the perfect kind of mix for content on Disney Plus. I think it was perfect mix of like, okay, we're getting a taste of Harmonious, but then we're getting something kind of fresh just for the streamer. And yeah, I enjoyed it. And the music, I think the Lion King stuff, the I don't know their names but the people that were singing the Lion King segment absolutely adored them. They were so into it. This one guy was like just singing his heart out, man.
And I know, right? I saw that. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do. That was, I was like, whoa, okay, he's into it now. Look, listen, that production was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it really, really was. Some people criticized it because it was like, oh, they're lip syncing. Actually, you know, we know a very good friend who was actually in that business of live performances and so forth, and he was looking at it very closely, and he was like, no, I don't actually think it's lip synced. Maybe portions of it are. But overall, he didn't actually believe that it was, which was fascinating to hear his insight on that whole thing. But regardless, I mean, that whole thing was absolutely gorgeous. It really, I mean, you got Lindsay Sterling up there, which, you know, is always kind of a cool thing to witness. But that Mulan segment, it brought tear to these old eyes. You know, I mean, you know, when that I believe it was a Chinese singer. Sung what was my reflection show, that portion of Harmonious. It was stunning. It was unbelievably beautiful, and the production quality of it and everything that was put into it. I knew it was going to be quite the production because they were setting this up for days, if not weeks, for this in advance for this production. And to ship in all these performers from all over the world to actually put this thing on here and do it in various places around World Showcase. I mean, it was quite the ordeal and quite the thing to set up. And I think they executed it beautifully. I had left a comment, I believe, on Disney Glimpses post saying that it reminded me of the old specials that Disney used to do back in the day. I remember for the opening special of Walt Disney World itself, they had like a huge orchestra. I mean, God, it must have been 500 people. Kind of orchestra in front of Cinderella Castle, and they made a big production of that and so forth, and included it as as a part of the opening special for that resort. Unbelievably huge stuff. They used to do this more often, and it kind of gave me kind of this feeling like, wow, it's like they're kind of, it reminded me of those days of when they did used to do that. And some people have been asking, like, hey, could you do something like that with Fantasmic? Could you do something like that with other, theme park shows to really kind of promote them and pull off these incredible productions? It's an interesting idea, and some people really resonated with it.
Yes, yeah, and we also, after we watched the Harmonious live, I showed my fiance this right here, and I can't play it here because we'll get copyrighted.
Oh yeah,
but I don't know if you guys at home have seen this, but Halle Bailey sings "Can You Feel the Love Tonight?" This was the kickoff for the Walt Disney World 50th back in October, right?
Mm-hmm. And
actually, this special is on Disney Plus. It's the Walt Disney World 50th anniversary special. Check it out. It's actually pretty great. But this young lady blew my mind with her voice. I mean, the way she sings this "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" song from Lion King, like I've never heard it before. Absolutely incredible. And really, really impressed me. Speaking of great performances and everything, check her out. It's all over YouTube, but it's also on Disney Plus with the Walt Disney World 50th special. It's definitely worth a check out. Really talented young lady. Really talented.
Wow. Look, I know what you're talking about right here, and this performance that you brought up here. I'll tell you, I mean, OG ain't lying. I mean, it was a great performance. And I can kind of see why maybe she might be selected for the role for Ariel. I mean, it's like okay, she definitely got the chops. for sure. Yeah, Disney Fan 55. I mean, Harmonious Live. I mean, it was spectacular. If you guys haven't seen it yet, definitely check that out. Worth seeing, and if you can, get the best. I don't know, if you have to play it from your car, get the best speakers that you can get and really play that thing and thump it, because it's some awesome stuff here. Very, very good recording quality.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now we're gonna close shop pretty soon. Last call, if anyone has any questions to kind of wrap up this Q&A. If anyone has any questions before we head out, we have time for maybe one or two more. But overall, really good show today. I mean, we got a lot of great questions.
Oh yeah.
And we dipped into everything: the parks, animation, Michael Eisner, Halle Bailey, Harmonious. I mean, it was a really stacked show. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And this has been absolutely fantastic. It's interesting because I'm about, let's say, hour 40 minutes away from actually seeing Top Gun Maverick again in IMAX. Oh my gosh, cannot wait. But yes. I don't know, hanging out with you, OG, with the chat here, I don't know, it's hard to beat this. I doubt I'll have this much fun, so it's been a blast.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and it's always cool to talk to people that are into this stuff like we are, like just Absolutely. Like fellow nerds, right? We're all just nerds.
Yeah,
like we're all nerds talking about stuff that we love, and that's what makes it so much fun. Because like when I was a kid, we didn't have like a lot of these like social media wasn't like really like a big thing back then, right? So if you were into something like Disney, I mean, if you lucked out enough to find like a buddy at school that was into it too, great.
Right.
Unlikely though,
Oh my gosh.
And nowadays, like, you have access to this stuff where like you can find hundreds of people that are into the same thing, right? And you can nerd out and have passion with people, and it's pretty awesome, man. It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty cool, back in the day. I mean, you're not wrong about the school thing. I remember back in high school, pretty big high school too, ain't nobody was into talking Disney parks. And I remember in my, graphic arts class, I think I took 4 years or whatever, and I think like the last 2 or 3 years of that class, I was basically in the mice chat forums, talking with anybody who would want to talk about this. And now it's like, wow, it's like we live in an age when people can come into this kind of chat, give their opinions, their questions, whatever, and really talk shop on this. I never imagined it, and it's really, really cool. So I do really appreciate you, OG55, for providing the forum for this and having me on. I mean, I'm honestly unbelievably humbled and thankful that you considered me.
Well, no, I love having you on, your family, and it's always a good time, man. It's always a really good time, and you make the show what it is. You make the show what it is. We are a team here, and we all play off each other so nicely, I think, And yeah, I am forever grateful for what you contribute to the show. 100%, man, 100%. And I'm really looking forward to your new toy, because that audio stuff like blew my mind. The Vader and all that, man. I'm really looking forward to the possibilities for future shows with that. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm sure you'll see a couple of things. I can guarantee it.
And our buddy Disney fan 55 says, "Have fun seeing Top Gun Maverick in IMAX, Bash Guy."
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'll, I don't mean to put any of our contributors on the spot or anything like that, but we have been talking with Theme Park Casual about maybe doing a Maverick show, just kind of something that's kind of off the beaten path, because I think that film was really spectacular. There's a reason why I'm seeing it again, folks. I mean, I took these guys' word. These guys recommended it highly. I was like, okay, let's take a bout at it. I was like, whoa, blown away completely. So I was like, okay, I got to see this in IMAX if it ever comes back, and here I go again. It was really, really good, folks. By the way, apparently in Maverick's 5th week, it might be #1 at the box office.
What?
Isn't that insane?
This thing is a beast, man. This is like Avatar legs.
Oh, I mean, that's what they're saying. They're saying that the only thing that's ever had legs anything like this has been Avatar. That's astounding to me. Astounding.
Wow. And yeah, speaking of casual, we have been in talks to do a Top Gun Maverick show, which we'll get around to that. We have to, because that's a fantastic movie. And I also want to give a big thank you though to Casual. He sent me this. Very, very cool, man. Very, very cool. I love it. I absolutely love it. And support Casual. He's a friend of the channel. He's got a YouTube channel. He just started it. Disney parks. Well, it's like Disney parks, but he'll dip into other stuff too, like other parks like Knott's and things like that. Mm-hmm. But he does phenomenal content. Really, really creative guy. His last video he just dropped a few days ago, he kind of overlays various like genres of music to Radiator Springs Racers.
Yeah.
And it really changed my whole perspective on that attraction. Honestly, that could be a whole video too, because like they really should be like Mission Breakout does, swapping out the music in that attraction. And his video really got my brain going with that.
It's something I never really considered before. I remember riding the attraction the first time going, oh, kind of a fiddle suite. That's kind of an interesting move right here. Maybe not the one that I would have made personally, but I think it kind of worked. But yeah, I mean, Casual, what he brings with that video, kind of doing these different styles and genres and so forth. I do agree with them. I mean, if he ever wants to come on and break that video down a little bit, maybe as a segment or whatever, I think that would be really, really cool, because I think I agree with you. You look at this attraction in a brand new light with what he brings to the table, and hey, you know what? You got to give him a little bit of this guy right here, right there. Got to give him a little bit of an applause right there, because
yes,
he's doing some really, really good work.
Yep, 100%. Maura Parker says, it's so nice hanging out with my fellow Disney nerds. Yes, I agree, Maura. I agree. It's fun having you here. We love doing this stuff. It's a lot of fun just talking like, Disney and just kind of nerding out with everybody. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, I think that's a good note to kind of close things out. To my 2 hour and 2 minute crew, I want to thank everybody for sticking with us. This was a marathon, and it goes by quick. It really does. It goes by fast.
Oh, absolutely it does. Absolutely does. But I'm glad people stuck around and people were that interested. It's like I've said before on the show, and I think you'll agree, OG, unbelievably humbling. So thank you so much for sticking around and contributing to the show like you did. I mean, you guys really came in strong, and we were able to get 2 hours of content, not just for you, but for everybody who will watch this video later and so forth. So hey, owe it to you guys.
Yeah, yeah. And then this weekend we'll be dropping some more content. We're gonna be doing a video about Abigail Disney tomorrow. That'll be interesting. There's some Abigail Disney news, and it's related to Chapek and the shareholders and all that. So we got a lot of juicy corporate stuff coming this weekend. But I want to thank everybody for watching. And Dre, as always, brother, I appreciate you coming on, man. It was a lot of fun talking shop with you today, sir.
Oh, a lot of fun. I'm always down for it, OG, and this was really great. So I thank you, sir, for considering me and bringing me on. And I'll close myself out here. If you guys want to interact with me yourselves, you can go ahead and do so right down there at Vashguy, just like it's spelled right there at the bottom of my screen, right there. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now, at Orange Grove 55 at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info squeezed fresh right from the Grove. So that is where you can find me.
But really nothing compares with a freshly squeezed.
I do agree there, Woo. Nothing compares to a Freshly Squeezed.
Adam Wu, another great Disney content creator.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, actually, he's not really Disney anymore, right? He kind of branched out into other stuff, which...
To be fair, he did.
Yeah.
But, I mean, honestly, even his non-Disney stuff is, like, really, really compelling in itself. So,
oh, yeah.
Hey, definitely, I mean, go back and watch some of his Disney stuff. It's actually really, really good. Even it just backtracking and going back to it. But definitely give him a subscribe. He's really, really great. He's really, really fun.
100%. Check him out, subscribe, give him all the love. And thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank Theme Park Wizard, Mara Parker, our friend, Mr. Casual, Disney Fan 55, everyone who joined us today. I know there's a lot. Kyle, Jared, Shayla Scott, our buddy Drunk 3PO, Isidoro, Stuart Rayfield, everybody. It's been a phenomenal time. Thank you so much for watching OG55. And as always, have a wonderful day.